First Timers Guide. We've put together this webinar just to make the process of doing your first Ironman and Ironman 70.3 feel a little bit easier, make it more seamless, and then answer any questions that you have, because we understand it can be a relatively both daunting and exciting process. We just want to make sure the day and your lead up runs as smoothly as possible. So we'll get started. So who we are then? So we are Millie and Katie. We've got 20 plus years of experience in endurance sports. We've been athletes ourselves for multiple years, done many of the Ironman and 70.3 races on the circuit, so we can answer lots of questions on specific races themselves. And I've also been coaching for a while as well, so we've got plenty of experience between us.
So what we're going to
Sorry,
cover
Katie, I've
today.
just got to let people in the waiting
Okay,
room.
no worries.
Just let them in before we get started.
Before we go into the main.
Before we go in anymore. That's it, there's quite a few in. Knew this would happen as soon as we get started. Right, that should be everyone. Right. Okay.
Cool. So what we're going to cover today is, and these are the topics that we thought would be most helpful. Firstly is taper and mindset. So some of you might be in the taper already. Some of you might have a few big weeks and then going to be starting your taper. So we'll just kind of go over what taper week looks like and what you can expect, and kind of some of the common feelings that you might get in taper week, all of which are totally normal. Setting goals for your first 70.3 or Ironman, kind of how to go about them, what that looks like, your race weekend logistics, so from everything from registering through to racking your bike and all of that stuff. We thought it'd briefly be good to touch on just cut-off times and rules. There are a few rules when racing 70.3 and Ironman, so it's always good to be aware of them. How to approach the swim, bike and run, the finish line, which is the most exciting part of the race. A little bit on nutrition, kind of how to get the most out of the fourth discipline, you'll often hear it called. Then we thought we'd just do a bit on what no one tells you, the kind of unheard of things of 70.3 and Ironman. And then a little bit about post-race, how to reflect on your race. And then we'll finish with a Q&A, as I imagine there'll be a few questions and things that we might have missed, or anything else you want to know. Really just use this time to ask anything. There's no such thing as a silly question, so definitely use this time to ask us anything.
Cool. Right. Can you still see the screen sharing?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just hopping in and out of Zoom because it's not letting me screen share and kind of be within Zoom at the same time. So if any questions come up or anyone's trying to get in the chat, just let me know.
Okay, I will do.
Okay, so first things first. So one of the most important things you're going to do to make your race experience the best it could possibly be is, for an Ironman branded race, we ask you if you set Total Tri Training as your club membership within your Ironman profile. So I've kind of screenshotted what my Ironman profile looks like. And if you haven't done this already, what you will do is go into your Ironman profile, and then under club membership, instead of it saying Total Tri Training like it does here, it will ask you to add a club. All you do is press add club, type in Total Tri Training, it will come up from the drop down list, select that, and that will be your club. So that when you then enter your race, you'll have Total Tri Training come up on your number bib. And generally what happens is, once we get the biggest club racing, so for example at Mallorca 70.3 that's just gone this weekend, we were one of the biggest clubs racing. So you get a special swing cap, and also when you bike rack, all the athletes can be grouped together. So at Mallorca, all athletes were grouped from the 200th So it just means you, when you're racking your bike, you're close to each other and you can kind of support each other a little bit easier on the day as well if you do that. So it's quite important that you do that. Just makes the race experience a lot better for you. If anyone has any questions on how to do that, then just use the chat or go off mute now.
And in the unlikely event that the swim is ever cancelled at a race, which we obviously don't want to happen, but if it ever does have to happen, like at Weymouth last year, Total Tri, it then becomes a time trial start on the bike, and Total Tri athletes got to go off first. So then you've kind of got the clearer race course to go off on, rather than some people ended up waiting a longer time. So it definitely does have its benefits to have Total Tri as your club. And at Mallorca we came second, and we all got to go on the podium and collect our little trophy, which was really nice. So
Yeah. Also to add on this, just so if we're talking about race experience as well, if you all get a pink and blue tri suit, so a Total Tri suit, anytime anyone sees a pink and blue suit come around the corner on the race course, you're going to get screamed at and cheers, which just makes the day just feel so much more enjoyable. So definitely would recommend doing that as well. Okay. Right, so reason why we've covered taper week or taper weeks is because the taper week can be a challenging experience for some. So depending on whether you're doing a 70.3 or a full Ironman, and also what your coach is setting and your individual needs, your taper week or weeks may look a little bit different. So for some people it might only be a week, for some people it might be more like 10 days, for others it might be closer to the 2 week mark. So that's for you and your coach to decide for you. But what we can expect and what a taper week will look like, so you're going to see a big reduction in training volume, again dependent on the athlete and the race distance that you're doing. So this is normal, so you're going to really be prepared to not be training as much. That doesn't mean that you're losing your fitness though. You're maintaining some intensity and some race pace work, so we're keeping the body primed and ready to race. And also we're going to look at carb loading, which we can talk a little bit more on the nutrition slide. And you're prioritizing good nutrition, hydration, and sleep. So we're kind of really preparing your body to race as well as possible. So like the purpose of the taper is to kind of allow you to really express the fitness that you've just gained throughout your weeks and months of training. When you're tapering as well, we call it the taper terrors. So it's really normal to experience like race week anxiety. Often you'll hear people say, oh, they feel ill during taper week, they feel like they've got a cold, or you feel like you've all of a sudden an injury has just popped out the blue. You've not been injured for weeks, and all of a sudden you feel like you're injured or you're niggly. That is completely normal. You'll have extra energy anyway because you're not training as much. So it's really important you just kind of just try and put the energy to good use and try not to, expel too much energy. And you can get sleep disturbances as well, and that could just be from changing your training load and also a little bit of race nerves as well, which can to lead to that. But these are all normal things.
Mill, is there a passcode to get in? Just a couple of people are saying they've been asking for a passcode, but
Passcode I'll be able to get if I'll just have to leave this though, 2 seconds. I don't think I can get it because I can't can't leave Zoom to get it.
whereabouts is it anywhere I can get?
Let's have a look at meeting in. Hang on, 2 seconds. Ah, here it is. Do I split it into the group chat, shall I?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Mhm.
Fab.
Okay, I'll just wait a couple of minutes and see if anyone wants to come in.
Don't know if you can go through to the next one while it's like this or not.
On to the next slide.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
rather than just in presenter mode.
Yeah, I can. Is that all okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. You want to do this one, Katie? Yeah.
Yeah. So we've obviously talked a bit about what taper week looks like, but we thought it would be good just to cover like what to do and what not to do in taper week. Often, and I've been guilty of this before, is when you are feeling a bit anxious or kind of apprehensive about the race, it can be really easy to try and think, oh, I'll just cram in an extra session, or I'll just do an extra swim, or I'll just nip to the lake and make sure that everything's okay in open water. But you really need to just use this time to allow your body to recover and prepare for the event. So don't try and cram in any extra volume or training sessions. And also, it can be easy to think, oh, I've suddenly got all this spare time that I'm not training. I'm going to go and catch up with that friend I've not seen for ages, or go into my office for a couple of days in the week. But if you can, really try and just have as much of a restful week as possible, and just give yourself time to sit down and really plan out your weekend logistics. Start to visualize the race weekend, visualize the day, and just really start to think about what you want that weekend to look like. This is also a really good time to, and we'll cover goal setting a little bit in a little bit, but just think about your goals, what you want to achieve from the race, what kind of success will look like from that race. And if you have time and you want to, and this is something I do and encourage my athletes to do, is just use this time to look back through your training, look at all the great sessions you've done, and really just start to build that confidence and self-belief for the race as well. If you can, try and stick to a routine as best as possible. And if you can, if you know you're going to be getting in the lake at, say, 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, try and start to shift your routine a little bit. So going to bed a little bit earlier, getting up a little bit earlier, as if you're not used to going to bed at 9 o'clock at night and getting up at 4 a.m., which a lot of us probably aren't. That can be a bit of a shock to the body on race day. So if you can, just get yourself into slightly closer to what the routine might be for race morning. And easier said than done, but try not to worry about the things out of your control. Like, you see people all the time, and again, I've been guilty of it, like religiously refreshing the weather app, checking the weather, what it's going to be like. And those are the things you can't control. All you can do is control how you would best handle that. So if it is going to be looking at the weather and it's going to be cold or rainy, just have things on hand that you could put on the bike, get the right kit ready so that you know you'll be prepared for that come race day. And remember, everyone will be in the same position. We had it at Mallorca this weekend, where it was a really crazy windy day, that we were expecting sun and blue skies, but everyone was in the same boat, and you just have to control what you can and not worry too much about the things you can't.
Perfect. Okay.
So that leads us on nicely to goal setting. And often with your first 70.3 or Ironman, I would say to people to try not to go into it with a time-based goal as your only goal, because obviously anything can happen during a race. And if you've not done this distance before, the main goal is to go and enjoy it and just take in the whole day. You never get your first one back, like the first finish line and that feeling and the experience, you never get it back. And the last thing you want to do is finish the race and think, oh, I feel like that wasn't a success because I went 10 minutes slower than what I wanted to. So I always say, remember why you signed up in the first place. Was it that you really wanted to challenge yourself and see what you were capable of? Was it that you were doing it for charity? Was it that you just wanted a goal? And really remember why you entered the race. And that's a good place to start, I think, when you're setting your goals. I think it's good to always set more process-based goals. So rather than a time outcome, why not set a goal around, I really want to fuel this race well. I want to take on my nutrition and finish feeling like I'm well fueled and finish strong. Or do you want to set a goal around kind of finishing the run feeling strong? So just set goals that aren't always time based, and also be realistic. It sometimes can be easy to think, and I've again done it myself, have goals that are maybe slightly too ambitious for where my training is at. So just be realistic in what is relevant to your training and where you're at. And things will and can change during the race, and that's okay. And it's good to be able to adjust on the race. Things might not go perfectly. So being able to think, actually, that might have been my A goal for this race, but now I'm going to just try and finish and enjoy it rather than being het up on that main goal that you've set. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Millie.
Yeah, I think you just touched on it there a little bit. I was just going to say about not letting it derail you. I mean, I think the wonderful thing about triathlon is you've got three sports to kind of to nail. So sometimes in a race, you know, you might not have the dream swim that you planned, but that doesn't mean that your bike or run will go the same way. So if you get out of the water and you know you haven't swam the way you wanted to swim, that's okay. Just move forward, go onto the bike and get your head into the bike and don't let your poorer swim or swim didn't look like the way you wanted it to, don't let that derail you from what the bike and run could look like. And you know the same goes for if the bike didn't go quite so well, then doesn't mean that the run won't either. So just try and really almost have your head in where it is during the race as well.
Yeah, definitely. It can be easy to think, can't you? Try and think about everything all in one go, and then it can become slightly
Yeah.
overwhelming.
I
So
mean,
just
I
focus
remember
on.
I remember when I did Bolton last year, I ended up having a terrible bike for whatever reason, and then I actually got onto the run thinking I wasn't going to be able to finish, and then actually the run went really well, and I PB'd my run split. So, you know, these things can happen when you're doing a triathlon. So it's just not letting it derail you is the most important thing to success. Then you can still have a good race. So. Okay, so now we're going to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of, I suppose, what an Ironman event looks like. And for anyone doing like an outlaw event, we'll kind of touch on how outlaw and Ironman may be slightly different, but for the most part, it's going to be relatively the same. So depending on where you're racing, and you know, if you're racing abroad, then you'll travel. And registration for a race generally opens around about 2 days before the race. Um, so when you register, so I've got a little picture here. So when you register, you will need any photo ID. You'll need your QR code, which you got emailed to you when you entered, and then you'll need a race day license. So if you're like a British Triathlon member, that covers your British Triathlon race day license. If you're racing abroad, you'll need to get a race day license, which you can buy when you enter, or you can buy when you get there as well. So if you haven't got race day license before you get there, then you can usually buy a race day license whilst you're there, but just double check like within your athlete guide to make sure you can get your race day license there. Once you've registered, in your race package, you're going to get your bib number. You're going to get all your stickers, so your bike stickers and your helmet stickers. You will get a swim cap. Sometimes you'll get two swim caps. For any Ironman 70.3 events, you will also get your finishers t-shirt at registration. Full distance Ironman, you don't do that, you get that at the end, but for 70.3s now you get it at the start, and then you'll get the everyone's beloved race bag as well, so your rucksack, and then within that you're going to get your transition bags, which is your blue bag for bikes. That's your transition one bag. We'll talk a little bit more about transition bags on the next slide. You'll get your red bag, which is your T2 bag, so your run bag, and you'll also get a streetwear bag. And then you'll get your athlete race wristband as well. So that's all you get when you register. So you don't get anything else, nothing like your time chip or anything else, just at this stage. Okay, so transition bags. So these are actually quite important. So your streetwear bag, which is your white bag, this is anything you're going to put in there that you want for after the race. Okay, so anything that you could be wearing, you know, before you start, like any trainers, any warm clothes, you put them in that bag. You go and give them to the designated area. You will then get that back at the end. Okay, so anything you go in there, you will get back at the end. Your first bag, which is your bike bag, so this is your transition one bag. We're just going to put anything you need for the bike in there. We're going to talk a little bit more about what you put in these specific bags when we get on a little bit further. And then your run bag, which is your red bag. So you think blue for bike, red for run, is your transition two bags, so anything you need for your run in there. For Ironman only, so full distance events, you can get special needs bags. Now, you no longer get these special needs bags in your race pack straight away. You have to go to a separate part in registration to go pick up a special needs bags because these are now optional. You don't always need them. Importantly, with special needs bags is that you don't get these back on race. So anything you put on there, normally it goes on bike course at like 80 miles within the bike, but it'll be different for each race. You will not get back what you put in there. Okay, so anything you goes in there, you must be willing to either use or lose, essentially. Is there anything else you want to add on transition bags, Katie?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. Do you want to go through what to put in each bag now or
I think we'll talk about that when we get to racking because it
okay.
depends on split transition or doesn't it really? Okay. Um, so moving on, so we're going to go into the day before the race then. So the day before the race is quite a big day. So on this day, we're going to, kind of do any last minute pre-checks, any training you're going to do in the morning, and then we're going to move on to bike racking and bag drop. Okay, so I've just mentioned there about transitions because some races will have a split transition. This means that transition one and transition two are in different locations, and some races will have T1 and T2 in the same place. Okay, so it's important you know what type of transition you get to because you'll need to factor that into your race weekend logistics and traveling. So generally, abroad races you will often take both your T1 and T2 bag to the same place, and the race themselves, they will transport your transition 2 bag to the second transition, so you don't actually have to go there. For UK races, so for example, Bolton is a split transition, you have to go to both transitions yourself and rack both bags. Okay, so if we go to transition one first, so your blue bag, what you're going to pop in there is your bike helmet, your bike shoes, and your number belt with your number on. Any nutrition, we can put that in your bags on race morning, okay? So you can put your nutrition in your bag already if you want to, or you can add that in on race morning because you're going to have access to that bag on race morning. Your red bag, so your run bag, anything you need for the run. So your trainers, you already have your time and chip on. You might already have your run watch on. So any nutrition, your trainers, and anything like a visor or sunglasses will go in that bag as well. Put your nutrition in that bag because some races you don't have access to your T2 bag after you've wrapped it. So sometimes on the day of the race, you can't get to your red bag because if it's in a different location, you can't get there. So make sure you've got everything you need in that bag already. But again, you can check the specifics of your race to see whether you will have access to your T2 bag. Once you've basically racked your bike, so when you rack your bike, the race organizers will ask you to put your helmet on. They'll want to check over make sure the mechanics of the bike are safe and working well, and you've actually got a helmet. You will then go and rack your bike with your number. So whatever number you are, there will be numbers on the bike racking, and you'll go find that number, and that's where your bike's home is going to be for the next 24 hours or how many hours it is. With your transition, make sure you visually remember where your bike is. So get a good visualization and walkthrough of transition. So you can go up to swim exit, so where you come in transition from the swim. Visualize where you're going to run into your bike. So I like to kind of count how many racks in my bike is. Make sure you have a walkthrough so you can easily find your bike on race morning. And then again, for the run out as well, if run out is in the same place as bike in. Before you get your bike and race morning though, you will go into your transition bags first, and then you will run to your bike from the bags. Once you've racked your bike, you don't pick up your timing chip until you've left bike racking. Okay, so on the day before the race, you rack your bike, you leave your bags on the bag rack, and then once you exit transition, that's where you pick up your timing chip. It's important that you then keep that timing chip safe. So some people like to sorry, just let someone in. Some people like to tie that timing chip around their ankle already, or just keep it in your bag nice and safe, and don't get it mixed up with anyone else who's with you if they're racing as well. when you rack your bike the day before, what we want to leave with your bike is literally just your bike itself, okay? Because you're going to have access to your bike on race morning, you do not need to leave anything else with there. There's been stories before in the past of people leaving their Garmin or their bike computer on their bike the day before, and they come to race morning and that bike computer has been stolen. Things like that do happen at Ironmans. So don't leave anything on your bike. On race morning, you will then come to your bike. You will add things like your nutrition, your water bottles, your shoes, if you're having your shoes on your bike. If not, they're going to be in your blue bag, and your bike computer will all be added on race morning. Okay. Hopefully, that kind of makes sense for you. Don't know if you want to add anything else to that, Katie.
No, I think you've kind of covered most of it. The only thing is, like Millie said, if you've got a split transition, just plan your race weekend
Yeah.
logistics so you just got enough time to, like for Bolton, for example, you obviously have to go to the town centre to register, then you have to drive to Pennington Flash to rack your bike, and then if you've not dropped your run bag off, you then have to drive all the way back to Bolton town centre to drop your bag, and it can just make the day really long. What I often do is, even before I go and register, I'll lay everything out, like all my bike stuff, all my run stuff, all my streetwear stuff, like on the floor at home. So then when I come back and I've got my bags, I can just put it in and then they're ready to go. Or even with Bolton, I'll take everything in the car and then put it in the bags even in the car park or at registration, so I've got everything organized. And try, and this is something I do, but again, it's personal, I try to not leave myself too many decisions to make on race morning. So often you'll see people like putting in transition bags rain jackets, gilets, sun cream, like every option for every eventuality. And when you come out the swim and you're a little bit flustered, your heart rate's already up, and then you're trying to make decisions about what should I put on, it can just make the transition feel a bit more stressful. So if you can, and you know what the weather's going to be like the day before, just leave yourself as minimal decisions to make in transition. So you know, you just get in, dress, head to toe, helmet, put your gilet on if you're wearing one, put your shoes on and go, and just give yourself as little stress in transition on the morning.
I suppose on that as well, it's always good to have a little look at what the weather forecast
Yeah.
is. So for, in transition, ideally you want to be as quickly as you can. So if it's planning on it's due to rain that day, then definitely pack a gilet or a waterproof if you feel like you want to the day before. It doesn't mean you have to put it on race morning, but it's just there. But if it looks like it's going to be a glorious sunny day, then you won't need to pack any gear like that. For anyone who's doing an outlaw event, just to add a little bit more to the mix, you don't get transition bags at outlaw. You don't get any bags. It's literally just popping the stuff next to your bike when you do an outlaw event. So you're all in one place when you do outlaw. Um, okay. Also, just for when to bike rack. So each race will have a specific set time that you can rack your bike from. So just make sure you double check with that as well.
Now, this is more the fun stuff for weekend logistics. Always make a plan for your supporters and where they're going to be. It is honestly the biggest lift if you know where your friends and family are going to be on the race course, and just mentally helps you so much when you get kind of out of the swim onto the bike and you can say to yourself, right, I've got 20 miles until I see my family or my friends. It really does make a difference. And just ahead of time, check where like the road closures are, because the last thing you want is your spectators to be planning to get somewhere and then they can't get somewhere because of road closures. So just make a plan for where they're going to be and how they're going to get there. And then the merch tent, where we spend all of our hard-earned money on Ironman branded stuff, but I always say go and buy the t-shirt. It's got your name on the back on the big Ironman M dot. Go and find where your name is. Celebrate that it's your first 70.3 or your Ironman, and definitely buy something to take home, even if it's just a water bottle or a mug. You'll obviously get your finisher t-shirt, but you want something to remember the day from. And often you hear people say, oh, I don't want to buy anything in case kind of it's bad luck and something happens on the race, but you've done all the training, you've worked hard, so go and get something to
Yeah.
celebrate your achievement, I say.
I've actually got athletes at the minute who are kind of putting a little bit of money aside each month ready for when they hit the merch tent, they've got a big pot of money to spend. So it's definitely worth it for sure.
And then we get to race day morning. So similar to kind of what Millie said about the day before the race, but just give yourself enough time and make a plan for race morning. Know when transition is going to be opening and when it's going to be closing. Often they do leave transition open quite late. So if the race starts at 7, for example, transition might not close until 6:45. But the last thing you want to do is be in transition 15 minutes before the race starts and then running across to try and get to the swim start. So give yourself, I always say, whatever time I think I'm going to need, and then I'll just add half an hour because you might be in the toilet queue. It might be a slightly longer walk than what you think. So just give yourself enough time to do everything. As you said, understand parking and road closures. Do your final visit to transition, drop your Garmin off, check your bike tires, put your nutrition on your bike, and then give yourself enough time if you want to do a little warm up. Now, every race is different. For example, at Mallorca, you were able to get in the sea and do like a 10-minute warm up. Some people might want to do just a 10-minute jog before getting into the swim pen. So, again, just give yourself enough time to do that. Give yourself enough time to have some food before the race, like your main breakfast a couple of hours before, and then know what you're going to have before the swim starts. So whether that's a gel, a banana, a squares bar, whatever it is that you've trained with, just give yourself time to get that in. And then again, just getting to the start, it depends on the race. So for example, a lot of Ironman races are self-seeded, so you need to get in your swim pen, and they do split them by kind of 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever your estimated swim time is, but they can be really busy. So you want to be in the swim pen before the race starts. You don't want to be then stressing trying to get in the swim pen. Obviously at Outlaw, you have swim waves, so you have a swim cap and time, which is slightly easier, but just make sure you're getting in the swim pen nice and early for also the Ironman spectacle that is Thunderstruck at the start of the race, because that is a really special feeling when they play that. And I had to put toilets on this slide because however much we don't want to be stood in a toilet queue on race morning, 99% of us will be stood in a toilet queue on race morning. And if it's 5 minutes before the start and you're in the queue, speaking from experience, it's really stressful. So give yourself enough time to go to the toilet twice would be my advice, because sometimes you just have a nervous tummy or you need a last minute to go to the toilet before a race. So
Yeah.
just factor that in because there's always a queue.
And the earlier you get there, the shorter the queues will be. So that's always a bonus as well. So don't underestimate how long you can actually be stood in these toilet queues for, because if you think Ironman don't often put up enough toilets and you've got, 2,000-3,000 athletes all trying to go to the toilet at the same time. So just really factor that into your time schedule because it's quite an important one, really, that one. Okay, so moving on to talking a little bit about race cut-offs. So race cut-offs are different per race. So you've kind of got the general guidance of full Ironman being 17 hours for the full race, and 70.3 distance being 8.5 hours. Some races look a little bit different. So, for example, at a race like Ironman Copenhagen, they've actually shortened the race cut-off. I think it's around about 15 hours at Copenhagen. So you make sure you double check your actual race cut-off, and outlaw events are a little bit more lenient on their race cut-offs as well. But general guidance is for your 70.3, you have 1 hour, 10 minutes to do your swim from when you get in the water. 5.5 hours to do swim, transition one, and bike, and then 8.5 hours to do obviously all three disciplines plus the two transitions. Okay, so on that is you'd be surprised at how much time you can lose in transition. So really try and make sure that you kind of moving through transition relatively quickly. Try not to waste too much time in transition if you can, if at all possible. When you're doing a full distance Ironman, it's 2 hours, 20 minutes from when you get in the water. 10.5 hours do you swim, transition, and bike leg, and then 17 hours for all three disciplines. And I'll start that time from when you get in the water. So, for example, if you don't get in the water until an hour after the race officially starts, then you will get your 17 hours from when you start, and you'll get your 8.5 hours from when you start as well. Okay, but just double check the race cut-offs for your specific race because it can look a little bit different per race.
The only other thing on that is just check any like interim cut-offs. Like sometimes they'll have like you have to be past 40 miles on the bike by this time, and that's like irrelevant of you might still be within the 5.5 hours, but if you're not past a certain bike point at a certain time, then you won't be able to continue based on when the roads are reopening and things like that. So just double check any interim cut-offs on each course as well.
Yeah, and Ironman are actually really strict on this. So someone asked me the other day saying, asked me how strict are they? And they're like, within the second, very strict. If you're just over any of those cut-offs by a second, you're out of the race. So really double make sure that you know exactly what's going on per race that you're doing. Okay, and then Ironman rules as well. So again, all rules, there's kind of general set Ironman rules. Some rules will vary per race, and all rules are found in your race guide, which will get emailed out to you. But I kind of just highlighted the key rules here. So you've got like a yellow, red, and blue card system at an Ironman event, which will be shown to you at marshals, and you most commonly hear this happening on the bike. But you can get DQ'd from the run as well and in the water. But your first blue card is a 2-minute penalty. Your second blue card is another 2-minute penalty, and then your third blue card would equal disqualification. A yellow card is a 30-second time penalty served either on the bike or next to a referee on the run. And then your red card is complete immediate disqualification there. When you will get penalties and disqualifications from, so drafting is the big one on the bike. So normally on drafting, you'll normally just get a blue card or a yellow card for that. So in Ironman, there's a 12-meter draft rule, and they have marshals riding the course quite frequently. They basically got marshals designed just to give out penalties. So really make sure you're sticking to the 12-meter rule from the athlete in front of you on the bike. If you litter outside of designated littering zones and someone sees you, that can be a penalty card. It'll depend on that is usually often a red card if you're seeing littering. You're allowed to litter within the A station zones. So when you come up to an A station on the bike and on the run, it will say littering zone ahead. Once you enter that zone, you are able to chuck any rubbish. If any of your empty gels, any of your empty nutrition, any of your empty bottles, you're allowed to chuck them without getting any penalty. And then you'll see a sign that says littering zone ended. And then when you leave that zone, you cannot do any littering, otherwise that will lead to some form of penalty. If you do any unsportsmanlike conduct or cause any disruption to an athlete around you, that could lead to a penalty as well. And exposure in Ironman, you're not allowed to have your top of your tri-suit zipped all the way down. So you're allowed to do the zipper down, but you're not allowed to expose your shoulders or anything like that. So just make sure you keep yourself covered up with your tri-suit. But again, just check for all those rules within your athlete guide as well, because they do vary from race to race.
You might have seen that video that's gone viral of the guy who's stealing all the Morton gels off the
Yeah,
course. And that got deemed as like unsportsmanlike conduct, and he ended up getting disqualified. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
the random things.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think many people in this group would do anything like that, but you just double check and know where you're at. More on the rules as well. So I think this is actually one that catches people out the most because especially if you're flustered in transition, it can happen. But basically your helmet must be on at all times and fastened when you're touching your bike. So when you leave the first transition, you're not allowed to even touch your bike unless your helmet is fastened up, even if you're not riding it. So once you get your bike bag, just put your helmet on, zip it up, before you even start running to your bike, and that will kind of stop that rule as well. And then once you come in on your bike, so once you've dismounted your bike, you've got to keep your helmet fastened up until you've wrapped your bike and you're no longer touching your bike. So your helmet must be worn and fastened basically if you've got your hands on your bike. Okay, so that's the rule there. You're not allowed any outside help except for, anyone who's involved in the race themselves. So either an athlete could help you, anything at an aid station, any race mechanics and volunteers can help you, but your supporters aren't allowed to help you, so they're not allowed to give you any nutrition from outside of race course. You're actually not allowed to be deemed to be seen like, if your supporter was running alongside of you, that's not allowed because that's seen deemed as pacing. So you're only allowed to have help from people involved in the race itself. No dangerous riding, which is kind of common sense anyway. So, things like think about the lines that you're taking on the bike as well, no blocking or weaving or causing any harm on the bike. And I did wetsuit and non-wetsuit legal because I mean majority of races are wetsuit legal. I think the temperature 24 degrees in the water and then the race becomes non-wetsuit legal. So if you know that you're going to do a race at a relatively, hot country or in a hot climate, double check ahead to see whether it's common for that race to have a non-wetsuit swim, okay? Because if it is, in that case, you swim in either just your tri-suit or you get a swim skin, which adds a little bit of buoyancy in the water. And that's what you're allowed to swim in, but you're not allowed to swim in any wetsuit type material if it's a non-wetsuit legal swim.
Just a question on that. Swim skin would be allowed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, swim skin's allowed, yeah.
I could be wrong on this, but for a lot of us racing in the UK, I don't think we've ever had it somewhere warm enough that I've never seen it be non-wetsuit in Bolton, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
But it's good to be prepared.
Yeah, there is an occasion where wetsuits don't become mandatory. It's kind of like an option.
Optional.
It depends on it depends on the temperature of the water. And there is sometimes races where the race officials won't tell you until race morning, until they've done their final swim temperature measurement. So again, ahead of time, just be prepared. Just have a think. If the race I'm doing has it been non-wetsuit in the past? Is it some years non-wetsuit, other years wetsuit legal? Because obviously coming into this year it could be either or. So you want to be prepared for both scenarios. So yeah, so sometimes they just won't tell you until the race morning. So just be prepared basically for the race that you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on to the swim. So I think the main things to just think about for the swim for your first 70.3 is obviously ahead of time, you'll know kind of what the nature of your swim is, whether it's a sea, a lake, or a river. But obviously, whatever body of water you're swimming in can vary depending on like a river, things like the current, the sea, kind of how choppy it is. So just look ahead of time. We've said this a lot, at kind of the weather, looking at what the conditions might be like. If you are doing a river swim, is half of it going to be upstream, half of it going to be downstream? So you just know what to expect ahead of getting in, because the last thing you want to do is get in and feel kind of shocked or underprepared for the conditions that you're swimming in. This kind of goes for the start as well, looking at what sort of start your swim is. So is it a deep water start where you might want to practice some deep water starts in training? Is it a pontoon where you might either have to jump or dive in? A dive is definitely not compulsory. You kind of often see videos of everyone diving off a pontoon and think that's what you have to do. But I've seen people bomb in, jump in, slide off the edge. So definitely like enter the water however feels safest for you. And then obviously some races just have a run or walk in. Normally for most races, if it's not a deep water start, I don't know how many races actually do deep water start since COVID. It's not been as many now. It's normally a more gradual feed in. It'll normally be between 3 to 6 athletes every 5 seconds. So you'll have a little bit of warning from the people in front of you. There'll often be volunteers that will kind of wave like that and the next row go. So in that time, just give yourself a few deep breaths and get ready to get into the water. And then just understanding the type of course you're going to be doing. Is it laps? And if so, is there going to be an Aussie exit? So an Aussie exit is where you have to get out halfway through, run a little bit, and then get back in. So just again, being prepared for the conditions of the swim and just knowing what side the boys are going to be on. So for example, if you only breathe to the right and the boys are going to be on the left, just be prepared that when you breathe to the side, you're never going to see a buoy of the course. So you're going to have to sight for the boys when you're sighting during the swim. And then we thought it'd just be maybe good to cover a few open water race tips. So the main things that have really helped me in racing, in particular with sighting, and just if you're a bit nervous ahead of the race when you get in, is create a bit of a rhythm for swimming in open water. Often people kind of get in and you see people sighting every 2 strokes, every 6 strokes, or sighting kind of on each different side that they breathe. But if you can get into a nice rhythm where you say, I'm going to sight every 8 strokes and I'm always going to sight when my right arm is lead forwards, it just helps you get into a bit of a rhythm and can just calm a bit of those nerves. And I found that really helps for me. If you can, try and sit on someone's feet. You're allowed to draft in the swim. It's the only part of the race that you're allowed to do that. So if you can, use it. Use someone who's a bit faster than you and save a bit of your energy. And if you are a bit more nervous, just go to the edges. The edges of the course are often where it's not as congested. So if you feel like you need to get a bit more space, just move to the edge. Or if you feel like you need to do a little bit of breaststroke just to get your head out and take a few deep breaths, that is also fine. And then transitioning into T1, one of the key things again that's really helped me is on the last 200 meters, just start kicking a little bit harder, get your legs warmed up to get onto the bike. Obviously, when we're in a wetsuit, we're a little bit more buoyant and it can feel similar to swimming with a pool boy. So you often see people kick less, which is great because you're using a bit less energy. But as you're getting into T1, just start increasing that kick, get the blood flow to your legs, and you'll find when you get out, it helps you feel a little bit better running into transition.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Okay.
do bike?
Yeah, I'll go the
Do
bike.
bike.
So basically, yeah, so the bike, kind of just echoing what I've said about the swim in the sense that understanding the nature of the course. So some bike courses might be a looped bike course, some bike courses might be a single loop, and then others might have, a couple, almost like a couple mini loops before you go out onto one big loop, something like that. So just make sure you understand the course, where possible, go and recce the course. But that's not essential, but can be really helpful if you've recce'd the course. Understand where the key sections of the course are, what the terrain is like. So if it's hilly, if it's flat, if it's mixed. So then once you understand the course, you can then put together a plan of how to approach the actual ride itself, which is something that you can sit down and do with your coach. But for example, like you can often treat a bike race almost like an interval session. So instead of thinking you're going to put out one solid power for the whole entire 56 miles or 112 miles, there'll be areas on the course where you push a little bit more power, there'll be areas of the course where you ease back on the power, but the terrain itself is carrying the speed for you. But that's a plan you can put together with your coach, but it's looking at the bike as more like an interval session rather than one solid ride in itself. With the ride in itself, you want to consider things like pacing. So you're definitely going to want to pace the ride. Again, pacing will come down to your coach, whether you have a power plan or a heart rate plan, and using things like RPE as well is really good. Your nutrition, you're definitely going to want a nutrition strategy, and that strategy is going to want to have been trained with. Often you might see people write down, like on their top tube of their bike, they might stick a nutrition strategy down. And companies like Precision Hydration actually sell these stickers, so you can write down, an hour you're going to take this amount of carbs, an hour and a half you're going to take a gel or whatnot, so you can have your strategy in writing. But the bike and nutrition is really important because that will massively lead to how well you bike and also how you run as well. Look at the weather conditions. So again, like we said, when went back to transition, is it due to be raining that day? Is it due to be really hot that day? Like if it's due to be really hot, you're gonna want to make sure you put sun cream on. If it's due to rain, then you may want to, pack waterproof in your first transition bag. Again, having a practiced in training in all weather conditions can really help. Understanding where the aid stations are on course is really important. So each course will have the aid stations located slightly different, so at a slightly different mile or kilometre mark. You're going to want to know where them are because, for example, you may want to have finished a bottle of hydration, or if it's carb mix, by the time you get to a certain aid station, so you can switch over your bottles. Um, Punctures. So going to want to carry some kind of puncture repair kit. So knowing what to carry and then how to actually use that kit as well is really important. Um, Toilets. So there will be toilets on course usually at the A station. Again, you can check that there isn't. But we'll talk a little bit more about going to the toilet whilst riding a little bit at the end as well. And then transitioning into transition two. So some athletes may take their feet out of their shoes and then place your feet on top of your bike shoes as you're pedaling into transition two. So knowing exactly where the dismount line is important. So you've got enough time to kind of get your feet out of your shoes. If you want to keep your feet in shoes, that's absolutely fine, and then take them off once you get into transition. That's also fine. But something that can often help is just upping the cadence a little bit to flush the legs out for the last mile or so before you get into transition two, just to get the legs prepared for running and flush out any kind of nasties that are in your leg from riding hard, and get your body prepared for running off the bike.
We'll try and go through these next ones a little bit quicker, just conscious of time and wanting to allow people to have time to ask some questions. So we'll just quickly go through the run, which again is quite similar to what we've said on the bike, just understanding the nature of the run course, where the aid stations are, and having a plan on how to approach it. Again, nutrition, we'll touch on this a little bit more as a full slide, but just knowing where you're going to take on your nutrition, what is available on the course. The one thing that I would say comes into play more on the run is, for me especially, and for a lot of people, is mindset. Is your mind will start telling you that everything hurts, and that is also very normal. So it's really good on the run to just break it down into smaller sections if you can. Try not to think, oh my gosh, I've got to run 13 miles. Really have a plan of break it down by aid station, by laps, and just allow yourself to tick off each little goal through that run. The only other thing to think about is what kit you're going to wear. So are you someone who's going to race in carbon shoes? If you are, just make sure you do a little bit of training in those beforehand, so it's nothing new on race day. Or actually just think, are carbon shoes the best type of shoe for me from a stability perspective, for example? But that would be something to discuss with your coach.
Yeah.
And then the finish, the best bit, are just a couple of things to think about for this. Zip up your tri-suit. Don't be having your tri-suit half open as you're running over the finish line, because that will ruin your photos. Don't be doing this with your Garmin over the finish line to stop your run time, because again, that will ruin your photos. Just take in the moment. Sometimes they have a first timers bell at races, so if you can, run and ring that. And also just expect all the emotions. Like, it's so normal to run over the finish line and just feel really emotional. That is really normal. And it's just a sign of all the training and all the work you've put in and the celebration of running over the line. So yeah, don't feel kind of worried or ashamed if you feel emotional at the end. It is normal. I have cried over a lot of Ironman finish lines, and especially the first one.
Okay, so we'll kind of go over this as quickly as we possibly can here. So it's important to note here that we're not nutritionists, and most of the coaches, aren't necessarily nutritionists. So you can, if you want a real detailed, structured nutrition plan, then that's something to seek advice from. But nutrition wise, with the guidance that we can give, stick to what you have trained with and practice beforehand, including your race day breakfast and your carb load. So you really do need to practice with your nutrition strategy beforehand. Like, I would say 8 to 12 weeks before race day, you're going to be wanting to really kind of dial in on this nutrition strategy, especially if it's new to you and you've never really done a nutrition strategy before. It's getting used to what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Understand how much nutrition you need for the race that you're doing. So that's understanding the demands of your race. Again, you can talk about that with your coach. Check what nutrition is on course. So, for example, Ironman's sponsor is Precision Hydration. So they will give out precision hydration on course. So if you're not used to taking precision hydration, then you need to make sure you're carrying all of your own nutrition. Make sure you've got a plan and you know exactly what you're going to do. So exactly what nutrition you're going to take at each minute mark. Listen to your body on the day with what you feel like your body needs. Check how you're going to store all your nutrition. This is really important on the bike and something I talk about a lot with athletes as well. You're actually going to store all your nutrition to make sure you've got everything ready on your bike and you know you can fit all your nutrition on your bike before you even get to the race weekend. And it might be that you're storing some on your tri suit as well. Like I've just said about getting expert help if you needed. So what not to do. Definitely don't want to be trying new things on race day because that can end very badly on race day. Don't want to be doing that. Don't follow guidance for someone who's a different gender, size, and etc. Make sure you stick to your own individual needs and plan. Nutrition is so individual and it can be so variable depending on, your weight, your height, your gender, for example. So really make sure you stick into your own plan. Don't get influenced by what other people are doing. Do not forget to fuel. This is really, really important. It's that fourth discipline of racing, but really it kind of underpins how
Yeah.
well your race is going to be. So do not forget to fuel. You can set reminders on your Garmin that remind you how to fuel, or again, you can use those write down a strategy using those stickers or something on your bike frame so you know exactly what you're doing each time. Don't let yourself get hungry or thirsty. So hydration is really important. They always say at the point you feel thirsty, it's too late. So always be on top of that hydration, even if you don't feel thirsty, and always be on top of that fuel, even if you don't feel low on energy or you don't feel hungry, because you don't want to get to that point. And adaptation in the moment. So sometimes things don't go quite to plan. So things like this, I like to always carry like extra products with me. So for example, on the bike, I might have one or two extra gels just in case I feel like I need a little bit more fuel that day, and the same with the run. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there. Just be prepared for things to happen on race day. Okay.
And then we thought we'd just do a slide on these are just the top things we'd recommend that before race day, these are the things that you should have done or should be able to do to kind of go into the race a little bit more at ease. So as we've said, tested all your race kit. Race day should not be the first time you've put your tri suit on. Race day should not be the first time that you're trying your race day nutrition. Make sure you've tried everything, make sure it's comfortable, make sure your nutrition works for you. You should be able to sort minor mechanicals. So there will be mechanics on course, but just to give you an idea of the scale, at Mallorca there was 3,500 athletes and there was 2 mechanics on course. So if you need a mechanic, you could be waiting for, if you're lucky, they might be close by, but if they're not, you could be waiting for a long time. So being able to sort them out on your own. The night before my first Ironman, I changed a spare in the tube 3 times, so I knew that I could do it on the day or the weekend before. So just practice, make sure you know you can do that. Have a plan for your race day logistics and race weekend logistics, so you know exactly what you're doing. So we put there race day nutrition as well. And before, like in a big training session, have the breakfast you're going to have on race day, so you know that your stomach can tolerate it. Nice clean white carbs, don't be having lots of fiber on race morning. Definitely have done some open water swimming in the conditions you're going to swim in. So if you're swimming in the sea, don't just practice swimming in a lake and then get in a sea on race day, because it is different. And then finally, just be confident that you can cover the distance. You've done the training. Really go into a race with self-belief and mindset. It really does change everything if you believe in yourself that you can do it. So be confident is my main tip as well.
Sorry, I skipped on a bit fast then.
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to rush through these last slides, so apologies. So things that nobody tells you. So keep a wee on the bike and the run. But you can also use the on-course toilets. Well, obviously, the reason why people pee and run on the bike is to save time. Okay, so obviously, if you stop for on-course toilets, then your timer does not pause with you, and also you could be waiting in the queue to use the toilet. Um, I wouldn't recommend practicing wing on the bike or running in training, and it's actually a more difficult skill than you think. So generally timing for going to the toilet if you're going to do it whilst riding the bike is time like just before you get to an A station so that by the time you get to the A station you can grab a bottle of water and you can water down over the bottom of your tri suit so you don't get any negative chafe like that and the same with on the run. But it's not a taboo subject to wee in the toilet to wee whilst riding and whilst running. So if you want to save time, please do that. Um, it's not just about fitness, so everything that goes into the Ironman is sort of mindset that will go into this as well. So often you're often fit enough. It's just having the mind to carry you through it, and also nutrition will massively dictate how you can get your fitness out in the day. Your brain will lie to you during the race, so that old-fashioned saying is your brain will give up before your legs. So that generally will happen when you're racing. So just make sure you keep believing in yourself, keep asking yourself the questions, am I okay? How does my pace feel? How's my heart rate? What's my pace doing? What's my power looking like? If you keep asking yourself those questions during the race, you will generally be able to answer and get them all out of yourself. It's meant to be hard, so you haven't trained for the race to feel easy. So when moments get hard, just remember you've trained for those hard moments and it's all going to be okay and you'll get through it. You may have moments where you don't want to eat or drink, especially when you're doing the full distance and you're, 20 gels deep into an Ironman. You physically don't want any more gels, but make sure it's really important that you do take those gels. And decision fatigue can be real. So there's a mental strain that goes with racing endurance events. So just again, go back to asking yourself those questions. Keep yourself focused. Keep yourself focused on what the job at hand and what it is you want to achieve from the day as well. Cool. Quickly then, post-race and reflection. So make sure that you really celebrate what it is that you've just achieved. So very few people on the planet are even going to attempt to do a 70.3 or a full Ironman. So make sure that you really celebrate what it is you've just achieved, no matter how the race goes. When it comes back to post-race reflection, so firstly, you're gonna want to reflect really positively on what you've just done. It's your first race. That's the most important thing, is just getting to the finish line. But then you can start to reflect more deeply on what went well, what didn't go well, why those things may have happened, and what to improve on next time. So when you come to your next race, you can improve on those areas. And also post-race blues are real, so expect to feel depressed a few days after you've just finished your race. It's a massive come down. This is normal. Give yourself time before booking something straight away. So, for example, like you'll do an Ironman, the next day you'll want to go ahead and book another one straight away, guarantee it. So make sure you give yourself enough time to go, okay, is booking another Ironman the right thing for me to do at that time? So just make sure you don't do something straight away.
I did that after my first Ironman. The next day, booked my second Ironman, and then had the realization that I was going to do it all over again.
You actually have to do the Ironman.
Yeah, you actually have to do the second one now.
Which might be a good thing. It's just important just to give yourself that time to reflect. And obviously you'll always want to do another one, which is fine, and you definitely should, but just make sure it's the right thing for you to do at that time. Okay, so we're going to open the floor up and answer any questions that you have. I'm sure there's plenty of questions. So either come off mute to ask your questions or drop your question into the chat box and we will answer the question for you. I'm just going to stop screen sharing, I think, a little bit so I can see people's faces when I'm answering questions.
Well, maybe we've covered everything that everyone wants to know.
Yeah, I know.
That would be good.
So the floor is yours, anyone. Please be brave.
But we hope this has been helpful as well.
Hey guys, yeah, I'd like to ask a question if that's all right. That was really helpful.
it's actually giving me some nervous tummy actually thinking about the actual day. But my question is, I had a friend who did an Ironman, and one thing he said that he wished he'd run across the line with his kids. So is that allowed at the end or not, or what's
That's only allowed at outlaw events.
okay?
So if you do that an Ironman, that can, depending on how nice or how harsh they're feeling, can lead to disqualification. At an Ironman branded event, but at Outlaw they actually make a big thing of it, an Outlaw event, and have a designated area for family members to wait for you for the finish line. So just double check with the event that you're doing if that's allowed.
That's great, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So I'm doing mine this Sunday. It's going to be cold. It's in a lake. It's going to be raining. I have done a certain amount of Googling and asking people, and I do have some strategies for coming out of the lake and feeling freezing and my hands being numb. But is there anything particular you'd suggest?
Are you planning on like wearing gloves and things, or
So I don't think we can wear gloves in the swim, but I've got
no, when you get out for the
yeah,
bike?
so I've
Yeah.
got some thermal cycling gloves and I'm gonna put some hand warmers inside them before I do the swim so they're warm. And I'm gonna put the same in my socks as well. So I'll be putting on warm socks and gloves. I'm also gonna have like a lightweight base layer in case I want to put that on over the tri suit, and I've got a teeny tiny, very foldable waterproof that if it's raining, I'll put that on as well.
Yeah. One
Yeah,
thing
it
I
sounds
will.
like
Yeah, sorry, Katie.
I was going to say, it sounds like you've got a good plan of what to wear. One thing, I get really cold hands and really cold feet when I swim. So as you're kind of running out the swim, the transition into outlaw is pretty long. So I would be doing like some big arm swings as I was running to get the blood back to my
Yeah.
hands and try and get them nice and warm, or just shake your hands off to try and get the blood flow as you're coming out of the swim onto the bike. Because then when you set off on the bike, if you put your gloves on and your hand warmers, your hands will hopefully be a little bit warmer because you would have increased some blood flow to them.
I was just gonna add, make sure you do, if you've got time and everything in the morning goes well, do a pre-race warm up and actually get your body temp get your core temperature up a little bit before you start. So like on a cold race, I would always like go and do my jog warm up with like some layers on, so I actually can get my body up nice and warm, and then aim to finish that. I know you've got to put wetsuits on and stuff, so aim to finish that, as close to the race start as you can, realistically, just so your core temperature is already up before you start.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And good luck.
Thanks. It's not outlaw. It's a local one. It's very low key.
Okay.
So not none of the merch, I don't think. Certainly nothing with my name on it.
70.3 or is never low key, regardless of the brand. Doing a 70.3 is amazing.
Hi Mel, hi Katie, it's Hamera. Thank you so much for the presentation. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Cool. Just about the warm up, I'm just thinking about, I'm doing, as you know, I'm doing outlaw on Sunday. It's like I'm kind of imagining I'm going to put my wetsuit on pretty much as soon as I get there. I don't know, I haven't really thought that through, and I'm just thinking, well, when do I actually do the warm up, which is actually close enough to the start, but not so that I'm then running around trying to get my wetsuit on as well. I don't know. I haven't worked that out in my head really.
So we already kind of spoke about doing a run warm up. So you have to do your run warm up as realistically as close to the race as possible. So you still want to leave yourself enough time to get your wetsuit on. Make sure that you're not rushing and stressing getting the wetsuit on. One thing you could do is do a run warm up, and then once the wetsuit's on, do some things like arm swings, things like jumping jacks with the wetsuit on. So if things like simple things like you do as a kid, like some squats or something just to keep warm. Some people actually don't do a run warm up and will just do like a swim, like almost simulating a swim warm up. So you might see some people on race with like swim bands and resistance bands, like warming up the shoulders for the race. That doesn't necessarily raise your core temperature enough, but it kind of warm up your shoulders for racing. But I would probably run warm up, and then once your wetsuit's on, because the wetsuit will keep you warm anyway. Just do some things like arm swings and like jumping jacks and stuff just to keep warm.
Thanks, Mel.
And just because the wetsuit's on doesn't mean you can't put like a coat on over the top or something like that as well.
Anyone got any other questions, or are we all ready for dinner? If you've not eaten yet. Obviously, if you think of anything that you've not asked now, or you want to speak to your coach directly, or drop us a message directly, then please feel free to. But we hope this has been helpful.
Yes.
And massive good luck to everyone on your races.
Yeah, good luck. Thank you for attending, and yeah, just reach out if anyone needs any help.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Useful.
Bye. Good luck, everyone.
Bye.